Hey Emma,
Yes, Madelyn.
in the future, when I'm all cybernetic implants and I'm really more of like an AI spirit creation than a human, what will you call me?
I don't know. What will I call you?
Ghost Punner. Hello and welcome to Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
Mashing up the two game titles this week was going to be boring, so I decided to go in a different direction.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I could tell.
I avoided using the word cyberpunk in my description of that future, by the way. You're welcome.
Thanks. Thank you.
Only to use it here.
I mean, you could definitely describe Ghostrunner as cyberpunk, so... And in fact, Wikipedia does describe it as cyberpunk action, so I think the word will probably come up, unfortunately.
But will we describe it as a cyberpunk-vania? I'm just kidding. I'm gonna let that go.
No, we will not describe it as such.
Well, listeners, thanks for tuning in. I am your partly cloudy host, Madelyn.
I'm your... It's raining... Emma's Ghostrunner corpses host, Emma.
Nice. And we're here to talk to you about some games on this fine December Sunday.
We sure are. We're here to talk to you about 2 games, in fact.
As usual. This week, we're talking about PS2 game Dark Cloud. And all current systems, except probably Mac, because nothing runs on my Mac. Game, Ghostrunner.
Yep.
So, a lot of different genre going on this week. Absolutely
Indeed.
No shared mechanic. It's gonna be good.
I mean, Dark Cloud is action.
You're right.
It's not like turn-based.
You slash
so...
things. You're absolutely right. In both
there's
games,
this shared
you're a
slashing.
slashy boy.
Yeah.
So let's start with Dark Cloud, shall we?
Let's do it.
Alright, Dark Cloud. It's an action RPG from Level 5 that you probably now know as the makers of the Ni no Kuni games, or if you're really into
Yokai Watch, probably.
What?
Yokai Watch is their, big series, I believe.
Is Professor Layton not their big series?
Oh, right. Professor Layton, too. But no, I think Yokai... Less in the West, I guess, but Level 5 is not super Western focused anymore.
No, they're not. They're not, they've really not made the crossover.
Yeah.
Which is fine. They seem to be doing fine for themselves.
Well, with the exception of Dark Cloud, they've perhaps become less Western focused, let's say.
Yes.
As
Anyway, so Dark Cloud was Level 5's first game, actually. They were kind of originally supposed to be kind of a second-party Sony studio, it sounds like, and then they just became a studio.
Yeah. Dark Cloud was actually supposed to be a launch title for the PlayStation 2, but it was not quite ready in time.
Yes, it had to come out 9 months later.
Yeah.
Delays. They've always been here.
They're eternal.
I do feel like I really recognize the Dark Cloud art.
Yeah? It's not just because it looks like Link?
I don't think it's just because it looks like Link. I really do think that Dark Cloud cover is something that imprinted on my brain in a younger time. I don't know why that would be, really. But it does look very familiar to me in a way that I don't think it's just looks like Zelda. But I could be wrong. So as Emma said, it was supposed to be a PS2 launch title, so it came out in 2000 in Japan and 2001 in North America. They even used it as a demo. It was one of those games that they should use to show off the PS2. So that's how launchy it was supposed to be, and then it wasn't. And there's also a sequel, Dark Chronicle in Japan, and of Dark Cloud 2 in the West, because there's no trust for the Western audience, apparently, to recognize that it was a related title if you didn't put a 2.
You know, it's really interesting because Dark Chronicle is really only, like, spiritually related to Dark Cloud, like, in terms of having different, like, similar systems. I guess maybe the idea was, like, to go off, like, maybe people would recognize it from, like, Final Fantasy having numbered titles despite not being related, and, like, they're related by their systems, not by their story, right? But I do think it's interesting, like, playing Yakuza Like a Dragon now, like, when publishers and developers bringing their games over from Japan or to Japan or elsewhere, I guess, when they're like, we should add a number or we should take away the number, and what marketing reign goes into that,
Well, I kind of get it because the game did not sell super well in Japan and really only found its foothold in the Western market.
Yeah.
So I get the justification of give it a new title for Japan and go for Dark Cloud 2 in America. I get it. My big marketing brain goes, I see what you were thinking there.
Yeah, so it really did sell very poorly in Japan. Its debut week, it sold a little under 20,000 units. And by the end of 2000, it sold like about 35,000 units. But it ended up selling 800,000 units worldwide over its lifespan. I think this is just the PS2 version as well. So you can see sort of the difference there. That's not just like a wider market,
Exactly. So Dark Cloud, it's a Japanese RPG. So, it's about a group of adventurers, led by a heroic boy from nowhere. Tone. And he's gonna fight against the Dark Genie, using the help of a magic stone called the Atlamilia, which was given to him by Simba the Fairy King, which I really dig.
Yeah. I think that's really funny.
And you're gonna use that stone to rebuild the destruction that I'll explain in Madelyn's lore corner shortly.
I mean, feel free. Give us that lore corner.
Sit on down, folks. It's the lore corner. Remember when I used to, do that whole off-topic corner, grab your hot chocolate, pull up a cushion,
yep.
The corner?
Yeah.
Those were the days. Anyway, here we are in the lore corner. So here's what happens in the game. So there's 2 empires, in the east and in the west. I think the empires have names. We won't get that into it. But in the east, we've got Colonel Flag Gilgister.
What a good name.
Gilgister, I love that. So in the east, he tries to awaken the Dark Genie so that he can control the world and attack the less industrialized west.
As you do.
As one does. And so the Fairy King, Simba the Fairy King, I keep saying that one because I really like it. That it's Simba the Fairy King. He protects the west. I actually don't know if Simba is a he. I don't know what Simba is. Simba the Fairy King protects the west by sealing everybody there into these orbs that the genie then kind of scatters throughout the non-industrialized wilderness there. And Tone is a Westerner who survives somehow through strength of heroism alone, I guess. And Simba tasks Tone with restoring the West, along eventually with Catgirl, Zhao, and some other friends and adventurers.
Yeah.
It gets crazy after that. I liked this. They learn that the moon people might be able to help imprison the genie, but the moon people they find on Earth don't know how to do magic anymore, so they have to go to the moon using the moon ship, which can only be activated by the moon orb that was accidentally traded for moon fruit.
It's a lot of moon stuff.
As I read it, I was like, really? We couldn't have named any of this stuff? It all had to be moon?
No, I imagine you go to the moon and everything is just moon, title,
You're absolutely right.
The moon chair, the moon table, the moon burger.
I can't argue with you, except that you go to the moon eventually, You travel around a lot more. You go to the moon. You gather the pieces of a giant mecha that's called the Sun Giant. Not the Moon Giant, the Sun Giant. You go back to fight the genie. You fight something you think is the genie, but is actually a mouse that's possessed by a little bit of the genie.
That's kind of epic.
I know. I was thinking about, like, how does that play out in the game in a way that feels at all, like, doesn't just feel, like, ludicrous. Every time, we've been doing, I feel like, a lot of these kind of early 2000s, late 90s JRPGs on the show lately.
Yeah.
And every time I read these stories, I'm like, man, like, Kingdom Hearts gets a lot of crap. Like, it's a lot of crap. But then you read, like, freaking Chrono Trigger, which is, like, a classic, right? You read this. Yeah. It's like, what is going on?
Yeah. It's always been like this.
I know. Every time I'm like, man, like, Nomura must be pissed that he's the one that people have memed for this. When everyone is doing it. I hope he wipes his tears with his money. Anyway. Apparently the genie's actually possessing Colonel Flag. And then this is where things get really crazy. Spoilers, I guess.
Sure. I mean, it's still playable. It's still, you can get both Dark Cloud and Dark Cloud 2 on PlayStation 4. And it says on the store that they are also playable on PlayStation 5, so.
Great. Thank God. If these are not going to have the PS5 upgrade, what's the point?
I don't know if they're upgraded.
No, they are. They were one of the first games that got announced for PS2 emulation on PS4, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Like, like this first one was supposed to be like a launch title, right? Like, this was the big deal for PlayStation 2, it feels like.
Okay, so let's get into the craziness of it. This is where my understanding really falls apart. Up to this point, I feel like I get how this works as a game. This is where things get wild. So, Flag dies, because he's not strong enough to, like, hold the genie. Okay, cool. Makes sense. So apparently, only the Atlamilia, the stone that we have, can defeat him. So Seda, who you won't remember because I didn't talk about him, but he introduced you to the cat girl at the beginning, whatever. He comes back, and he says, okay, so I kind of helped create the Dark Genie because some sad stuff happened to me because his fiancé died somehow or something. And when I realized what I had done, I found out that the only thing that could beat it is the Atlamilia, this stone thing that you've been using to do good in the West. So I realized then that the Atlamilia wasn't going to be created for another 400 years. So I went to the future, and I got it, and I brought it back, and I guess gave it to Simba so that you could have it. And then now you need to go back in time and defeat the genie before, like, destroy the genie before he's created. So you go back in time, you aren't able to stop the genie from killing this guy's fiancé and being created, but you kill the young genie, and then you use the stone to revive the fiancé, so now, even though you just killed the genie is never born, and then you go back to your own time. And you apparently still exist, even though... Anyway, yikes.
Makes sense to me.
No, it doesn't. Stop that.
I think it's fine, whatever. I don't care about time travel mechanics, it's fine.
I just feel like whenever, like, the climax arc of the game involves time travel, it's like, no, please. I wanted to follow what was going on.
It's pretty simple. It's just the thing of, like, going back to kill some bad person when they're a baby, except in this case it's just like an actual demonic force and you're actually saving somebody, so it's better.
I know. I still feel like, oof.
Don't worry about it.
Thanks, Emma. I won't.
I do think it's always key that a lot of the times we're getting these lore corners from not actually watching through the entirety of the game, right? So always reading about any story is going to be more confusing than actually experiencing that story.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely. That I 100% understand. I don't mean to be dissing this story or saying it doesn't make sense. I just do love this perspective that I do get on these, like, 30-hour, 20-year-old games. They're just like, and at the end, they time travel and cause the Big Bang.
I don't know how long Dark Cloud is, but I know Dark Cloud 2 you can play for more, like, way more than 30 hours.
Well, I looked into it because
thanks to all the different mechanics.
Because I considered buying it and then didn't. How long to beat says the average run is about 30 hours.
What about the completionist run?
That I didn't track because I didn't think it would be relevant to me. I was looking, being like, is it worthwhile for me to get this and play a couple hours for the podcast? And my calculus was no.
Oh yeah, okay, here's the contrast. So Dark Cloud, main story is about 31 hours. Main plus extras and also completionist is about 40 hours. Versus Dark Cloud 2, main story is about 51 hours. Main plus extra is about 72 hours. And completionist is about 135 hours.
Yikes. Sequel bloat, am I right?
Except everybody likes Dark Chronicle better, apparently, so...
Whatever.
You get like a robot that you can use in dungeons by like riding him, and you can upgrade him, which I think is probably the reason why. That's the reason why I like it better, having not played either of these games.
Let's save that idea. That's going to be a really helpful thing to come back to when we're combining these two games, I think. The rideable dungeon robot. File that one away.
Okay.
So it's a game, right? So we should talk about the gameplay a little bit.
Sure, yeah.
So it's part like hack and slash RPG, which in some ways my favorite type of RPG. I do like a good turn-based every once in a while, but especially in these kind of like early 2000s games, it's like, no, please don't give me like your slow freaking unskippable like animations and stuff. Just let me slash the monsters. Like, good. But it's also, in addition to this like procedurally generated dungeon crawler, it's also kind of like weirdly like a city builder.
Yeah, so like as you said in your lore corner, the Fairy King saved all the people and stuff by putting them into orbs. So part of what you're doing is like collecting all these orbs, and then you use like the buildings and structures you find to just rebuild stuff. So in Dark Cloud 1, it's pretty limited in that you get like a set stuff you need to do basically, and it's more like you're placing things that are already made. Sort of. I don't fully understand. But apparently in Dark Cloud 2, there's a lot more, like, customization. You can pretty much, like, build whatever you want. So that's, like, a big part of what made it stand out from the crowd is, like, meshing the genres,
The original
which is the point of our podcast,
really, yeah.
So...
No, it does feel a little bit like something that and I'll say this for both of the games this week. Both of these games do feel a little bit like something that would be like, oh, well, we have to get mechanics from both of these games in here, so what will that be? It's like, this one is like, it's Roller Coaster Tycoon. It's not Roller Coaster. It's like Zoo Tycoon and any number of, like, JRPG things.
Yeah,
Vagrant Story.
I never finished Ni no Kuni 2, which is also a level 5 game, but it's basically like that. Like, you have... your sort of hack and slash sort of segments, and then you also have this sort of castle town that you have to build up as like a city builder type thing. So I can see perhaps some inspiration coming back from the roots for level 5 in that game.
There are a few other games of theirs. Rogue something? Maybe? Rogue Galaxy? Does it ring a bell? There's some other game they have that also had kind of a similar, like a spiritual successor kind of feel, which makes sense.
Yeah, Rogue Galaxy.
Yeah, because Sony co-owns the IP, so their CEO has like come out a few times, been like, well, like, of course we'd love to make a Dark Cloud 3, but it's kind of complicated because we're not actually a second-party studio, and we like to make our own money now, pretty much. So... will you ever see a Dark Cloud 3? You know what? You never know.
Rogue Galaxy was in the first group of PS2 to PS4 games. So they were just the classics of the PS2 era, apparently.
Just Sony's
Level
favorite
5,
children,
like
basically.
the obscure classics, I guess.
Well, it's weird, right? I mean, it's definitely this group of games that if the internet is to anything to show for it. Like, there was some energy around people, like, wanting another sequel for it, like, 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And now it's like you never hear about it.
Yep.
So it's, it'll be interesting to see if Dark Cloud, I mean, there's kind of already Dark Cloud remastered because you can play it emulated, but it'll be interesting if in this wave of nothing new can be created, Dark Cloud gets dug up.
Well, unfortunately, maybe I'm making this up, but I think Level 5 was considering pulling out of Western
they just
releases.
did. October. Yeah.
Just because they haven't been doing super well, is my understanding. So they're deciding to focus more on Japan, which is sad. So even if there was to be a Dark Cloud 3, it's possible it would not make its way over here for a while.
Well, it kind of makes sense. I was reading a few, at least pieces of some of these kind of 20th anniversary retrospectives on the company that were coming out earlier this year. And it does sound like, I mean, they made a couple of Dragon Quest games, right? Professor Layton is bizarrely huge in Japan. So it's an interesting example of a company that, like, is definitely big in Japan. But really, like, despite that, and despite working on all these, like, really iconic IPs over there, just has not made that jump.
Yeah.
Even though I was reading about it, and it was kind of funny in the wake of our console generations episodes last week. Like, the founder was like, yeah, I was, like, reading all this stuff, and it seemed like all the cool games and all the interesting stuff was coming out of America. And I was like, that's funny. E.T. ruined that for you, buddy. Yeah, I mean, even this game, though, I mean, you mentioned it when you were questioning whether I actually remember the cover. I mean, it was pushed as sort of the PS2's answer to Ocarina of Time, basically.
Yeah.
And did not seem to, that comparison did not go favorably for Dark Cloud.
Sure. I mean, it's a debut game, right? Debut games are always going to have debut game problems, where people are still figuring things out.
No, I'm just always fascinated by, like, the more things change kinds of things. It's like...
You mean everything, all the Breath of the Wild inspirations nowadays?
I do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like, now if anything is kind of open world and beautiful, it has to be compared to Breath of the Wild.
Is it pretty? Is it outside? Do they fight things? It's Breath of the Wild. It's a clone. How dare they?
And it's
Nintendo
funny here.
has copyrighted the outdoors.
And it's funny here now that it's like, it's like you're outdoors fighting some magic. And it has to be Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
There were also some comparisons to Vagrant Story because of the weapon system. Yeah. Vagrant Story that we talked about early in the pandemic.
Yeah.
And also to Shenmue because there's like something about the combat has a dual system, I think, that overlaps.
I see.
So, again, I was like looking at it and I was like, yes, if we had created Mashup, we could have made this game.
Yeah. I mean, that's, the reason we thought of this mashup thing, or at least from way back when, was a game creating exercise that I did in the class. So there's a lot of benefit to that, of taking a bunch of stuff from a bunch of different things.
I know, but at the time we started the podcast, it was like, oh, this is silly. Like, this is a silly thing. Like, what a fun little gimmick. And now I feel like every game I look at here, or maybe we've just hit a lot of games recently.
We have talked about a lot of games. This is
Stop
like
that. That's
101?
not what I meant. You're right. We have talked about over 200 games now. But what I meant was I feel like recently, in the past year, maybe, I've been noticing more. Maybe this just has more to do with me having an increased literacy in things that I can recognize in games. That's also certainly a possibility. But I do feel like I've noticed more and more and more games that I'm like, oh yeah, like that is kind of an Ocarina-vania. I thought I would stop. I can't stop.
Stop using mania. This can't be your new running gag, okay? It's not allowed.
Shoot, I have to bring back the video game gym. Socially distanced, of course.
I do appreciate that the cat girl is literally a cat that gets turned into a girl in this, apparently.
You know what I don't
Does she
appreciate?
turn back into a cat at the end, I wonder?
I don't think so. That would be pretty dark.
It's pretty dark to just take a cat and make them a human.
Unless she wants to be a cat girl.
Did she gain, a ton more life, though? You know? This is the stuff I get stuck up on, not time travel.
Cats have
I want to know if the cat girl still has cat years of life or girl years of life.
But cats have 9 lives, so it's, about the same.
I see.
In fact, cat lives times 9 is probably more life than the human year of life.
So my question still stands. Or does she have 9 lives still, but are they human-linked lives? And will she live for 1,000 years?
Yikes. Maybe, and then she appears in Dark Cloud 2.
That's my lingering question.
Here's my lingering question. Why did GameSpot refer to this game as Tone is Link with an Alibaba twist?
Like Aladdin? Because there's a genie?
I didn't like it.
I don't love it either. I think that's the reason.
I hadn't really put the genie part together, and that makes a little more sense. Because I was, looking at the cover image, and I was like, no, he looks pretty white.
Yeah, no, it's the genie.
I don't love that.
Yeah.
I read that quote, and I was like, oof.
Well, shall we run along?
Oh, dear. Oh, no.
To Ghostrunner?
You betcha. It's time for Ghostrunner. Hey, remember, a couple months ago? I don't remember when we talked about Mirror's Edge, but it was within the past, 3-ish months, for sure.
Sure.
Remember when we talked about Mirror's Edge, and we were like, really, there's no other games that are like this?
Yeah.
Here's Ghostrunner.
Yeah. Yeah, it is very much like Mirror's Edge, except instead of being cool girl Faith, you're very gruff-voiced Ghostrunner, who I'm not sure still if he's a real human or he's partially not human. He's partially code mechanical of some sort.
Yes.
But it's not super clear.
His name is Jack.
At the start. His name is Jack?
Well, they nicknamed him Jack when they found him because he was all jacked up.
Oh.
And so then his climber calls him Jack.
Okay.
Jack.
He just refers to himself as Ghostrunner. Ghostrunner.
Nice. Emma's in this game. Emma voices the lead character in this game. Did you know?
I did play, I played it for about 2 hours. Did I make 2 hours worth of progress? No, I probably made an hour's worth of progress.
See, Emma texted me before the show, being like, I'm a baby. What did you say? Wait, I'm trying to find it. Emma says, I am too baby gamer for Ghostrunner. Baby gamer with baby hands.
That's how it made me feel, okay?
Listeners, this is where I admit it. This is, I think, only the second time this year.
Something like that. Second or third time, I don't remember.
There was one time I couldn't play it because I did not have systems for it. I think there was only one other time I actually missed playing one of the games, and I can't remember what that was. But this, I do admit that I did not play either of the games this week. I felt that as I had played Mirror's Edge, and like Emma, not to say, I was tempted to play it because I was like, well, maybe it'll be better, maybe I'll be better at it. But Emma's texts really validated my decision to not spend, the full $30 on a game that I did not think I would be very good at. Because I was pretty bad at I was not very good at Mirror's Edge. And yeah, I didn't think I was going to be good at this, so I didn't do it.
One benefit of this is sort of like it feels like it's got a bit of like Katana Zero to it too.
That's
in that
what I thought.
It's instant reload when you die. There's no like, well, there is some falling, but as soon as you die, you just hit triangle and you're immediately back to the checkpoint. Now, are those checkpoints a little ungenerous? Yes.
See, the gameplay I was watching, the checkpoints, maybe it was just that people were dying at, like, the exact right points, but the checkpoints didn't seem so bad in those ones. Clearly, that's not the case for a real baby gamer like me. I did watch gameplay footage, and I felt that because I had played Mirror's Edge, I understood the experience of playing the game.
Yeah, it's maybe a little faster paced than Mirror's Edge, just because there is like actual combat as opposed to Mirror's Edge when you're really not supposed to get into combat. So that's probably like the main difference there, is that there's a lot of murder and stuff. Although I'm pretty sure I'm in a part where I just need to get out of there. But where am I going? I don't know. Everything's moving too fast. I can't see anything.
Well, you're going to the top of Dharma Tower, Emma. Duh.
Yeah, I meant, yeah.
Anyway, Ghostrunner, if you haven't already picked it up and you aren't familiar with the central mechanic of Mirror's Edge, Ghostrunner is a first-person, post-apocalyptic platformer that you might also call cyberpunk, that came out at the end of October for pretty much all platforms. I think the Switch was a few weeks later, but it is on Switch now, if you want to play it while you run through your city, too.
I can't imagine playing this on Switch.
I know, with my drifty controllers.
Yeah, it would be hell. If you have controller drift, and you're like, maybe I should get this on Switch,
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
It's
hard enough without controller drift.
My controller drift has really led to me buying many more things on PS4 lately. It's pretty sad.
I just got a pro controller, only I don't think it has vibration, which sort of takes away the experience from some of the games.
Yeah, I do have battery-operated controllers that I don't have batteries for. So, that's my own fault.
I did use it when playing Animal Crossing once, and it was like, holy crap, my character's standing still. Like, it was like an incredible experience. It was like a revelation. But anyway.
Anyway, it's another game that feels like a clear mashup of two games. Some people were comparing it to Dishonored, which I'm not as familiar with, but I was like, it's a Mirror's Edge meets Katana Zero, like 100%. If we had happened to get those two games in the same week, this is the exact game that we would have created.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, just on the nose. The super fast reload, the one-hit samurai stuff, like...
Yeah, the one-hit is brutal.
Yeah. Literally even the slow time. Like, it's a perfect mashup of these two games. It's bizarre. So you play as Jack the Ghostrunner, and by, like, running around through your cyberpunk tower, you've got to make it to the top of this, like, tower where all of humanity lives after some kind of calamity, and you're being directed by this dude, this computer called the Architect, and also by your climber, Zoe, so that you can defeat Mara, maybe also called the Keymaster.
Yes, she is. Her guards are all called Keys, too, apparently.
Doesn't everyone know you can't name anything? You can't call anything key-related? Anyway, Ghostrunner is from Swedish game company One More Level, which, I hadn't heard of.
Yep.
But must be tough to be a European company publishing a post-apocalyptic robot.
I mean, this is nothing like...
I know it's nothing like it.
The other game.
They did post on Twitter, they posted, like, a fun little, like congrats to the Cyberpunk team. Although it was on the delay thing that they always post. It was pretty funny. I was like, this is pretty good.
Yeah.
You Swedes. Yeah, I feel bad for not playing this game. It's the kind of game that I wish I was good at.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it too. But functionally, so I played, like I said, I played about 2 hours, probably made about an hour's worth of progress. I found the default controls are like mostly on the triggers, which isn't really good for me. So I was getting the buttons mixed up a lot. So I actually switched control schemes so that more of them were on the face buttons. But I'd already played for a bit at that point. So like my mind was like doing like the it's X. No, it's R2. No, it's X. I switched it. And by that point I'd be dead.
I can't believe you went so far as to switch the control scheme. That's more pro gamer than I will ever be.
I mean, even like I had gotten to a point where there's like lots of grappling hook sections, so that's on L2. And currently L1 is my slow down time sort of thing. And just managing that a lot, my left hand still hurts from doing that. So like the triggers just don't feel supernatural on PS4 to me. Like the L2 buttons always feel awkward to me. Which maybe is a benefit of getting it on Switch, is those shoulder buttons feel better, I think.
I can see that. Yeah, I didn't realize that the trigger buttons were hard for me until I played a rhythm game that utilizes them a lot.
Yeah, I mean, the top ones are fine. It's really the L2 and R2 buttons that I don't know how to press.
Haven't been working your middle fingers out enough, have you?
Apparently not, yeah. But as I was playing it, I was like, man, I wish I was good at this, you know?
Yeah.
Because I feel like you're supposed to feel cool, and nothing feels less cool than hearing the badass music loop for the third time.
Yeah.
Like, there's, like, an awkward, like, 3-second period of silence before it starts up again. And that very much does not feel cool.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing that I did really like about Katana Zero is that it did successfully make me feel cool when I got through a level. And that usually, with the exception of maybe the very end of the game, where they were very long and I didn't want to die 2/3 of the way through and I was being a little more cautious, like, usually I didn't have to repeat things too often, and if I did, it was fine. This... I mean, on one hand, it feels like this is a game, and I don't mean this because it's, like, literally a game where you are speed running, but it does feel like a game that is built for speedrunners. On the one hand, because it requires somewhat precise button inputs and an ability to, like, see paths in a way that is a key element of many speedrunning games.
Yeah.
But also because I can imagine that this would look, like, sick as heck if you can do it all in one pass.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's partially because we just did not play a lot of, like, first-person games in our youth. And so I don't think I've really learned that sort of viewpoint when playing a game.
I know, I have to look all around. I can't figure out where I'm supposed to go in these games all the time.
I'm very bad at where my character is placed in the world, so a lot of times I've, like, jumped right over the head of an enemy and gotten, like, shot in the back immediately in this game because I'm just not good at measuring where my character is. And, like, the head camera feels like it moves really fast to me in terms of, like, looking around because it's, like, the actual speed that, like, your head would be moving, I guess. So that feels a little bit weird. And none of these are, like, the game's fault. I just think that I am not very used to first-person games because whenever I play a first-person game, it becomes, like, 10 times harder for me.
Well, it makes you yearn for really successful VR. When I see a game like this, to be honest.
Oh god, I would vomit.
I know that you would vomit. That's why I'm trying to say really successful, because I know if you played this game, or even if I played this game on kind of current VR setup, it would just be nausea-inducing.
Yeah.
But this does feel like the kind of game that would be very cool in, like, I realize VR has been 10 years away for 20 years, right?
Yeah.
But it seems like the kind of game that would be really cool in 10 years, when moving your head around at that speed is actually the speed you're moving your head around.
Yeah.
Like, I acknowledge that. But yeah, I also feel like another thing that I feel like I've noticed in the past year, going through, the games for the podcast, is I'm much better at identifying the kinds of games that I would prefer to watch than play. And feeling okay with that.
Yeah, I still struggle with that a little bit. Because, like, sometimes I'll be like, that's cool, I want to play it. And that's sort of what the case was with Ghostrunner, too, is, like, I would watch the trailers and I'd be like, rational brain is like, Emma, this will make you nauseous. Like, it's lots of lights and looking around, and you have very sensitive eyes. And then
eyes.
monkey baby gamer part of my brain says, no, fun samurai, Ghostrunner, slicey slice, pachow.
She put that on Steam.
And then I buy it for like $20 on the Black Friday sale. And I play it, and I'm like, wow, rational part of my brain was right. Who would have thunk it?
See, this is why games can't have demos, because if games have demos, people won't buy them.
Yeah. That's kind of true.
Right, I totally would have played a demo of Ghostrunner. And you know what? Maybe it would have sold me, but probably what it would have done is told me, ooh, you're bad at this game. And if Toxic listeners know one thing, it's that I cannot be bad at a game.
Yeah, I felt, as this year has gone on, like, as I've gotten out of college and also everything else that's happened this year, I feel like I've had less and less patience for things that are hard, you know?
I mean, I feel that way in my, like, television media. Like, I'm done with prestige, whatever. Maybe I'm not, but I'm mostly done with prestige TV.
Yeah, I hit that point first, actually, in terms of, like, I can't, like, Mr. Robot is as prestige as it gets, and that's, like, pulpy nonsense, basically. Like, I can't watch, like, Breaking Bad or Mad Men. It's just not something I can do. And in terms of games, like, if I have the option to, if something's really frustrating me, I will turn it down to very easy, and then I will do it, and that'll be that, you know?
I think
I don't feel as guilty anymore about, like, turning down difficulty level or something.
I think you're more mature than me on that front, still. But I think you also
there's so many games I want to play. I don't have the patience for things that, like, aren't fun. You know?
That I hear.
If I'm not having fun with it, whether or not that's the game's fault or not, I can just move past it.
Yeah, and that's the, not problem, because it's the problem with me, but, like, that's the problem with games like Ghostrunner for me, because I recognize that nothing here is that hard. Like, it's challenging, but there wouldn't really be a way to turn down the difficulty in a way where the game felt the same. I guess the big thing that I would want in these kinds of games is maybe I've gotten too reliant on, like, mini-maps and indicators and stuff. But if I could turn on a mode where it would just tell me where to go, that would go a long way towards making me feel cool in this particular kind of game.
I mean, that, like, when I was playing The Last of Us Part 2, I turned on that accessibility function where I could just press a button and it would tell me what direction I was supposed to go in. And wow, that made the game so much smoother for me, you know? I wish all games sort of had that navigation assistance. I haven't had too much trouble, like, figuring out where I'm supposed to go in this, except for where I currently am. But that's a different story. But in terms of, like, the straight traversal segments, I don't have too much trouble figuring out where I'm supposed to go. It's just a matter of I really have trouble navigating the buttons. My brain does not work fast enough to remember which button I should press when.
Or maybe I would enjoy this game more if it were an auto runner, and I just had to, like, press the button at the right time. Something about navigating in these first-person games is always not fun for me. And if it would just, like, run me the way I was supposed to, I think I could find enough challenge in the, like, having to slow down and beat things and slice things when I need to.
I'm not really sure how that would work with this game, to be honest.
Yeah,
it would be a
fair.
functionally different game.
I mean, I recognize that. I'm not saying this is something they should do. I'm just trying to figure out, like, how could I even get into a game like this without having to bite the bullet and, like, practice and get better at it? Because that's not...
Yeah.
That's not me.
Yeah.
Well, are you ready to try to do a mashup of these two games that are themselves mashups?
I'm ready.
Great. Go ahead, then.
So it's a sort of, neon dystopia future, okay?
Great.
And some sort of, like, force of some sort, maybe it's like a corporate thing, maybe it's like a supernatural thing, has sort of, destroyed your city or town or village. Maybe you live in like the outskirts of like the big city or something.
Sure.
But you survive because you're the hero. And you have to sort of go into the city to sort of try to find, like, take back resources and find people to help you, like, rebuild your village. And in the end, you go back in time to stop the destruction from ever happening in the first place.
Did you really explain what the mechanics of this are?
It's slashy. You have a slashy sword and you slash.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to incorporate an element. What I was thinking would be cool. I have nothing but this, and maybe you can work this into your concept. But I like the idea of taking the kind of like city builder element and instead turning it into part of the like runniness. So like you can like, we just watched Full Metal Alchemist, right? So like you can alchemy like platforms into being or something like that.
Yeah.
You don't sound as excited about that as I was. I thought that was the obvious next
I was
frontier.
thinking about playing it and going, oh, buttons. That's the only problem.
Well, we are not designing this game for us. We're designing this game for, like, dope freaking Twitch streams. So.
Yeah, no, I think that's a neat idea.
Thanks.
Is that all you got? That's all you just got, making platforms?
Well, it wouldn't just be platforms. Like, there would be other things.
So, like, what's the context of that, though?
I don't know. Does it need a context?
Yeah. Are you actually physically making platforms? Like, are you magic, or is it some sort of, like, a cyberspace situation?
It could be either, depending on what direction you wanted to go, if it's a magic game or if it's a cyberpunk game.
Oh, there's this... The puzzles in Ghostrunner are stupid. Everything else is just because I'm a dumb baby gamer. But the puzzles, I had no idea what I was supposed to do. I had to look it up, because you're supposed to, like, make a rectangle. I don't know how I was supposed to know that. Anyway.
Oh, that could be...
That takes place in, like, a interweb sort of situation.
That could be cool. You could have to, like, run through... This would be awful. You'd need guideposts. But you could like, have to do, like, a quick run through, like, an alchemy, like, pentagram to, like, make something appear. I don't really love that, to be honest.
I don't really love that either.
But it was an idea that I had, and I thought I would throw it out into the world. But no, it could either be... The creating things could either be, like, you're hacked into the network, and so you can, like, manipulate the robots to do stuff. Or it could be magic, depending on,
No, I meant you're literal. Like, are you literally a digital thing in a digital world, and that's why you can make platforms, not like you're controlling robots.
Oh, that would be kind of neat, too. If you are, like, a computer program, you're, like, a game in a game. That's kind of meta.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're an entity, so that's not really a game.
Well,
so.
I know, but it's like, maybe everything is just, like, in the simulation.
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
That's kind of neat. And then in the end, you break out of the game into the real world.
No, that's not what I meant.
Never mind. Yeah, it's hard to mash these together for me.
I mean, we just made 2 perfectly fine ones, so...
I know. But I want it to be a game that comes out in 2023, you know?
What?
I want it to be a game that, like, we talk about as a new game on the podcast in 2023.
Oh, I see.
But somebody made it, and we're like, man, we predicted that.
I mean, people love Cyberpunk now. And not just because of that one game. Like, there's a lot of stuff coming out right now that's... Maybe it was the Blade Runner movie. I wonder if that's why people are like, Cyberpunk's cool again.
It might just be that we all love robot.
That's different. There's always been robots.
I'm just kidding. Might be that we're all thinking about our corporate overlords a little more lately.
Sure. It's more the aesthetics that are back into fashion, not the meanings.
That would be a kind of fun way that the game works. The game, you, like, talk to your Alexa, whatever your Alexa is, in this game world, and she builds things for you.
So literally the architect is what you're saying.
But the architect doesn't build things for you, does he? Is he...
I think he does when you're in your cyberspace area.
Oh, well, that's lame. That's lame that they already did my idea.
But no, maybe, like, there's, you just make, like, the typical, like, hero story, except you're, like, in sort of the net, right? Like, your little Tron area was destroyed by a virus,
okay.
And you have to sort of go through the rest of, like, whatever program you're in, and hopping to, like, other operating systems or whatever. I'm throwing out computer words here, like I know what they mean.
No, but I think it's
understand.
good. The more computer words you throw out, the more it sounds like this is a thought-through concept. I dig it.
No, but, like, you know, like, you live in your little program area and it's, like, personified, but then a virus comes in and halts everybody's, like, functions. So you have to go, like, you're probably in a computer, but then through the network, you can connect to other computers, right?
I dig that. And it provides a fun opportunity. You can do, like, a fun little, like, third-person platformer, like, section as, like, a little, like, wink, wink. Like, it's an old operating system. Haha. Just for a moment.
Sure.
A lot of elements of comedy for me here.
Okay.
Well, that's as good a mashup as I'm going to come up with, so... And you really were the one who came up with it. I did nothing other than say, maybe they should create stuff. So we'll cut it off there. Folks, thanks for tuning in for another episode of Talk This. It is dangerous to podcast alone. I'm never sure if I'm expecting you to jump in there or not.
I'm never sure either.
I should really either throw it out in a clear way or just not say it.
You could make, like, a physical gesture, you know, through the camera.
You're right, but that would be cheating, because the listeners can't see that.
Yeah, but that's not cheating. That's, like, prompting somebody, like, backstage, you know?
Nah, audio alone. Thanks for tuning in.
Guess I'll turn off my video then.
No! If you liked this week's show, you should follow us on social media to give us your thoughts about... Oh, I almost said about all things cyberpunk, but please don't do that.
Yeah, I don't want your thoughts.
Just your thoughts on runny, slashy cyberpunk.
Runny, slashy cyberpunk.
And on whether you remember the Dark Cloud logo, or if you just thought it was Link. Or anything that this episode made you think about. Follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Talk This Podcast. You can also check out our website, www.talkthispodcast.com, where you can read all about the show, check out the games that are in the virtual hat that Emma's about to pull our last games for 2020 out of, and read our blog featuring long-running series Split Screen, where we're talking about Coffee Prince and My Hero Academia, and Clickbait Boyfriend, where we're talking about not really that crazy in the context of all the other JRPGs, Kingdom Hearts series. Woo! Finally, you should subscribe to the show. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, Pandora Podcasts online and on the app, Overcast, Pocket Casts, anywhere that you can find podcasts, you can find Talk This. If you ask the architect, he'll probably play it for you too, I think. So next week it'll be a side quest of Emma's choosing, which I doubt she has chosen yet.
I'm still thinking about.
That's what I figured. You would have roasted me if you'd had the idea, though. You'd just been like, this is what we're doing, you dummy. But Emma, what are we going to be talking about in 2 weeks for, our, like I said, our last main episode? Actually, our overall last episode of 2020.
So our old game is going to be Moon Remix RPG Adventure.
So you mean Dark Cloud?
No.
With the moon ship and the moon fruit and the moon orb.
Yes. And our new game is going to be Watch Dogs Legion.
Speaking of cyberpunk.
Yeah. Well, that's less... I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit. You're right. It's a little.
I wasn't saying it was as cyberpunk. I was just saying.
It's a little punky.
So tune in for a punky episode with moons in 2 weeks. And next week for the side quest. So, folks, that's it for this time. Thanks for tuning in. Emma, do you want to sign us off this time?
This week, I hope that you grow from baby gamer to toddler gamer.
Wow.
Who knows how to walk.